Okay, so now we're getting into expressions or order of operations. You guys probably have heard this PEMDAS. So that's parentheses comes first. Parentheses can look like this, which we're used to seeing, brackets, or these. So it's pretty much going in basic parentheses, special parentheses, super special parentheses. And we'll get to an example of that later. Then after you take care of your parentheses, you do your exponents. Remember, exponents are the ones that have a little 2 or a 3 on top. So this is 2 times 2, that's 3 times 3 times 3, if you guys remember those. Multiplication and division, so that's right here. It's multiplication and division, they're tied, okay? And then addition and subtraction, again, addition and subtraction, they're tied. So how I always teach it is, think about who would eat first. Your parentheses and your exponents are the king and the queen. Multiplication and division are your prince and your princess. And adding and subtracting are the commoners, the peasants. So who gets fed first? The king and queen got to eat before anybody else. Then it goes to the prince and princess, and then the commoners get the food. You can't give the food to the common people. That's disrespectful to the king and queen. That's not how it's going to work. If you're the royal chef, you get thrown to jail. No one wants to be thrown to jail. So always king and queen first, parentheses and exponents, prince and princess, multiplication, division, adding, subtracting. So think that you learned about adding and subtracting first. So that's why it's the lowest, because it's the easiest. That's another way to look at it. So here's an example. I'm doing my parentheses first. Says it right there. So 22 minus 12 is 10. And then everything else falls down like Tetris. 3 times 10 is 30. Done, that's my answer. Okay, and at the end of your work, you should always want something that kind of looks like an upside down triangle, because you're slowly solving a chunk of the problem at a time, so the problem's getting smaller and smaller until you get to your answer. Okay, parentheses first. Now look at the difference between the two. Here we had a parentheses in the back, I still did it first. Here we have our parentheses up front, great, I'm doing it first anyway, because parentheses are always first. Even if it's adding, subtracting inside the parentheses, doesn't matter, parentheses first. 25 minus 4 is 21. Everything else falls down like Tetris. 21 divided by 3 is 7. Again, see how I have that upside down triangle. All right, now we're going without parentheses. Okay, so P, no parentheses. I don't see any exponents, so I gotta do multiplication or division, whichever comes first. All right, that's adding, that's subtracting, here's dividing. Okay, so I have to do 100 divided by 5 first. I know that is 20, because I know that in my head. If you need to write it to the side, you can. And then everything else falls down like Tetris. Okay, you need to do it one at a time, because if you're trying to do multiple steps at a time when you fall them down, then it'll get the wrong answer. So, no multiplication, no division. Now I go to adding, subtracting, whichever comes first. So, left to right, adding came first. So, 5 plus 17 is 22. Everything else falls down like Tetris. 22 minus 20 is 2. And look, I have that upside down pyramid I'm talking about. Okay, let's look at this one. This one might get a little squished. So now I have these things that are the brackets. So brackets are like big parentheses. So I need to do what's inside my little parentheses first. 7 minus 2 is 5. 10 minus 8 is 2. Everything else falls down like Tetris. So see, after that's done, I have just my brackets left, which are fancy parentheses. So I still do what's inside here first. So now I have 7 times 5, which is 35. Okay, so now finally you're going to get these fancy things. So you do the same thing I did before. You go to your normal parentheses. 12 minus 8 is 4. 11 minus 9 is 2. Okay, and then I drop everything else down. I drop the times 2 down, I drop the times 3 down, and then I drop my brackets, that symbol, bracket, fancy thing, fancy thing, times 3. Whew. All right, well, now that there's no parentheses, I gotta do my brackets. 4 times 2 is 8. 2 times 3 is 6. Drop everything else down. All right, and now I have just this part. 8 plus 6 is 14. And then I just have 3 times 14, which, like I said, you can write to the side right here. Please do not try and do it in your head. That's how you'll get it wrong. And we don't want things wrong. And look at that, I have a nice upside down triangle. Okay, so just remember, you always go in order, no matter what. You can't skip around, you can't do any of that. You find what you need to do. So you look at the entire problem, find your parentheses. Okay, it doesn't matter if it's in the front or if it's in the back. The parentheses go first. Exponents, I know I didn't have any example of an exponent, but you would just solve it in there. Multiplication and division, whichever comes first. So if I had a problem that had both multiplication and division, I would do which one came first. Like here, I had both adding and subtracting. I would do whatever one came first. So if subtraction comes first, I do that first. If division comes first, I do that first. Okay? All right, it's not too bad. Just remember, you have to stick to the order.